The latest chapter of Boruto is a pretty divisive one. Some people thought it was a banger, while others thought it was a boring recap chapter that stalled the plot entirely. Personally, I think this chapter is a bit of a mixed bag, excelling in some areas while also being harmful in others. Let's start with the good and work our way towards the bad. This first one is pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but it was nice to see Himawari's previous line of, "I'm not sure if I healed Ino-Jin properly," actually paid off, as she didn't heal him properly. The two explanations behind this are either Jura's wood style has long-term chakra suppression properties even after the wood style is removed, or Himawari accidentally blocked Ino-Jin's chakra flow when she healed him due to her innate gentle fist prowess that she hasn't yet mastered. I already discussed this in my sneak peek spoiler video, but to very briefly summarize, I lean towards it being because of Himawari, since Jura's wood style most definitely didn't block Himawari's chakra flow. Wood style has never been able to suppress a person's chakra while it was disconnected from its opponent. Himawari has already shown the ability to perform a similar feat on the day Naruto became Hokage, and Himawari being the cause of Ino-Jin's chakra flow being disrupted simply better aligns with Himawari's dialogue about not healing Ino-Jin properly, in my opinion. In addition, if it is indeed true that Himawari's power has some connection to Baryon mode, it's also possible that her chakra simply has somewhat of a chakra blocking effect, perhaps in place of the life force shaving effect Naruto's had. Obviously we don't know the ins and outs of Himawari's power, but it's something to keep in mind. As far as Sakura goes in this scene, I'll come back to her another time. Now the next scene I want to talk about is, as funny as this might sound, arguably the best executed scene in this chapter, and it's the brief exchange between Kawaki, Ada, and Daemon. Daemon is once again being a troll and poking fun at Kawaki by bringing up the fact that Boruto can easily expose Kawaki's lie about Boruto killing Naruto, and wonders how Konoha will react and asks Kawaki what he'll do about it. Breaking this down one character at a time, I greatly enjoy the fact that Daemon brings this up for the second time, as it continues to foreshadow the fact that Kawaki's lie will eventually be exposed. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. This builds tension and anticipation towards that moment, as we know Kawaki being exposed means bad news for the character, and it also means Kawaki is liable to do something drastic, something we aren't ready for. Ada then jumps in to defend Kawaki by telling Daemon to stop making fun of Kawaki just like she did in chapter 6 when Daemon said the same thing, showing the reader that Ada does in fact still love Kawaki and she will continue to defend and protect him. This is very important for Ada's character for 3 reasons. First, it shows Ada's love for Kawaki is very strong and not just a fickle crush that can easily disappear at any moment. Second, it shows that while she does feel remorseful for what she accidentally did to Boruto and doesn't want Boruto to die by any means, she still chooses to protect Kawaki above all else. And third, based on our conversation with Mitsuki in chapter 8, Ada's character journey is one of self-love, but in order to complete that journey, she needs to be backed into a corner, forcing her to overcome herself and her flaws. This has yet to happen, so she has no reason to change, no reason to grow. She is acting exactly as she should. Then we have Kawaki's response, which is the first time in TBV Vortex that we've had a real look into Kawaki's thought process. When talking about Boruto, Kawaki says, "A dangerous otsutsuki who could rampage at any moment. That's his true nature. Killing him is the only option, whether it's now or later." So far, Kawaki's dialogue in TBV Vortex has made it seem like he wants to kill Boruto because Boruto's genetically otsutsuki, and that's it. I know that's not what he literally says, but it's the vibe he gives off. All he ever says is, "Because he's otsutsuki, why else?" without actually substantiating what that means to him. But now, he's finally addressing it in an understandable way, and he's actually using his encounter with Boruto in chapter 9 to substantiate his point, a point that aligns with his heartfelt dialogue in chapter 79 of part 1. This is very good, and to be honest, this is something they should have done sooner. When Kawaki argued with Sarada in chapter 4, rather than saying, "You just don't get it, Sarada. Boruto's an otsutsuki, no matter his motives. he's an enemy that needs to be killed just for being Otsutsuki. He should have said, you just don't get it, Sarada. Boruto's a dangerous Otsutsuki who can rampage at any moment. That's his true nature. Killing him is the only option, whether it's now or later. Doing so would add greater weight to Kawaki's statement that he is an Otsutsuki killing Otsutsuki in order to distinguish himself from Boruto. Because based on the argument Kawaki actually made, Sarada has every right to call him out for being an Otsutsuki himself, and his argument of, I'm an Otsutsuki killing Otsutsuki, doesn't actually address Sarada's point given the reason he gave for why Boruto needs to die. With this change, Kawaki would actually have a point. He could also just not say that, since he got mad when the Rinnegan Clawgrime called him an Otsutsuki and he said, I hate it when people call me that. So it's kind of weird for him to go from hating being called Otsutsuki to calling himself an Otsutsuki 2 chapters later. He really should have said something like, I am not the same as him, or he and I are not the same, Sarada, but I digress. Regardless of the Otsutsuki killing Otsutsuki statement, if Kawaki had said, Boruto's a dangerous Otsutsuki who could rampage at any moment in chapter 4, he could have directly referenced his chapter 9 encounter with Boruto here, saying something like, you never know when he'll go on a rampage. I've seen it with my own eyes. He just can't control it. I think that would have been better overall, but I'm really not hung up over it. I'm just glad they said it eventually. Compared to other problems, this is the least of my worries. Moving on though, I don't have much to say about this, but Amado's dialogue and panels of silence throughout this chapter were really interesting, and I really want more Amado-focused plot points and storylines in the near future. He's one of my main points of interest. And on that note, I found it interesting how Boruto refused to reveal Kashi and Koji's identity, which coincides with how Koji told Shikamaru not to look back at his toad in chapter 9, and while we don't know if there's a specific reason for this secrecy or not, I think the reason Koji doesn't want his identity revealed is because of Amado. Amado expected Koji to die against Ishiki, and I don't think Koji wants Amado to know he actually survived. This is especially interesting if Amado is indeed the one who gave the message from Ishiki to Code, like I theorized at the very beginning of my channel, which I still believe by the way, where Ishiki conveniently left out Kashi and Koji from his hit list of people who caused his death. Koji would have seen this with his 10 Direction Shinjutsu, as well as anything else involving Amado. At the very least, it's something to keep an eye on. Boruto also mentions that Jura has no human prototype like the other shinju, and instead is a direct incarnation of the 10 tails like I predicted, and I'll leave a link in the description and comments to a short video covering a few of the signs leading to that conclusion. And for those of you who thought Jura might be connected to Ishiki or Jigen, there's still a way to do that, which I'll explain in a future video, so don't lose hope just yet. But for those of you who thought Jura was pretty much anyone else, chances are that's not the case. Now, I don't really like that they flat out revealed this so early in the story. It's kinda like revealing Tobi to be Obito in the Kazekage rescue arc, or skipping the Madara Uchiha persona and just having Tobi reveal himself as Obito to Pain after Datara died. It just feels too soon. Jura's identity was one of the big mysteries of TBV Vortex, and it was answered only 10 chapters after he was introduced. Now some of you will say, but it was so obvious he was the 10 tails, and that might be true. Like I said, I predicted it too. But you could say the same about Tobi and Obito. It's kinda obvious when you think about it, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a fun mystery before his identity was finally revealed. Same with Kashi and Koji. That man was screaming Jiraiya all over, but it was a fun mystery while it lasted. And just for reference, Kashi and Koji was introduced at the end of chapter 15 of part 1, and his true identity was revealed at the end of chapter 47, 32 chapters later. Tobi was introduced at the end of chapter 280 of Naruto, and his true identity was finally revealed at the end of chapter 599, 319 chapters later. For comparison, the average Naruto chapter is about 17 pages, while the average Boruto chapter is 40 pages, so the mystery of Tobi would have lasted 135 chapters in Boruto, literally longer than the entire series, including part 1. Meanwhile, the mystery of Jura only lasted 10 chapters, and I think they could have played with the mystery for a bit longer, because otherwise, what's really the point of the mystery? Just reveal that he's the 10 tails in chapter 5 or something. But hey, at least he looks cool in this panel. Next I want to talk about Ino and Shikamaru. It was really cool to finally see Shikamaru forget about omnipotence like Boruto said, and seeing Shikamaru still trust Boruto because he remembered his choice feels heartwarming, especially when the kid looks so much like Naruto in this chapter. However, and I won't really call this a critique of the chapter, but I do want to mention it, having actually seen this memory loss take place, I think it would have been arguably cooler and more impactful if we weren't told that omnipotence wipes your memory of omnipotence, and instead we're shown that revelation for the first time in this chapter, adding much greater shock value to the moment where Shikamaru forgets about it, while also adding more weight to Shikamaru's decision to continue to trust Boruto, because Boruto didn't tell him to do it in advance. But either way, it was nice to see it happen, and it happened pretty quickly in universe. I still have a rant about omnipotence that I never posted that was only strengthened after this chapter, but we'll leave that for another video. Other Shikamaru things I liked in this chapter are his conversation with Ino that I'll come back to later, his desperate attempt to free Boruto as he's backed into a helpless corner, and the potential repercussions of his latest actions in support of Boruto. While Shikadera may act stupid sometimes, as long as he's looking out for Boruto, we can't help but worry about his safety. He's become a lot more likable in Blue Vortex than he was in part 1, making the reader feel more sympathetic and want to root for him. He's trying his hardest to help Boruto out despite the situation. He's pleading with Ino as his friend to support him, and he even refused to officially take the Hokage seat because deep down he believed Naruto was still alive. How can we not support him? It was also really cool to see Mitsuki carry out his plan given his most recent interaction with Boruto, going as far as to activate his sage power to play up the act. I also like how Boruto immediately picked up on the plan and started taunting Mitsuki so as to give him an excuse to be enraged, before Mitsuki slams him against the wall and frees Boruto from his ceiling cuffs, while also telling him where his stuff is. Now I'll admit this is the biggest nitpick ever, but you know there is a specific speech bubble for whispering, right? It's canon to the Naruto universe. So based on the manga, Mitsuki just flat out said where Boruto's stuff is and how many guards there are out loud for everyone to hear. Ibuki's literally right behind Mitsuki trying to yank him off Boruto. But there's no way he didn't hear that. Use the whisper speech bubble. You're making Mitsuki look stupid. Now when it comes to Ino, it's heartbreaking to see, but the rift between Shikamaru and Ino over the Boruto situation adds a lot of tension to the story on two fronts. First, Boruto cannot communicate with Shikamaru anymore, meaning they can't share intel privately anymore. This hurts both the village and Boruto, since Shikamaru can't warn Boruto of things and vice versa, though it's less detrimental for Boruto since Kashi Koji can always warn Boruto instead thanks to his 10 direction Shinjutsu. But if Koji ever dies, Boruto will no longer have anyone to strategize with and no one to inform him of future developments, since Shikamaru cannot communicate with Boruto privately through Ino. The only way to do it would be for them to meet in person, which is infinitely more risky since he's more liable to get caught. Second, whether Ino divulges what Shikamaru has been up to or Shikamaru is forced to take more drastic measures, Shikamaru has been gradually treading into dangerous territory. He's making risky moves that make him look bad as a leader, and if this keeps up, he will eventually appear incompetent as Hokage or be exposed for helping Boruto. And if that happens, it's going to be tense, and I'm here for it. It's also cool from the perspective of Ino's character as she's being pulled in multiple directions. She's worried about Inojin, she's worried about Shikamaru, she's worried about the village, she normally trusts Shikamaru, but she doesn't trust Boruto. That's why she cuts off the secret communications with Shikamaru. She doesn't want Shikamaru to get himself in trouble. Now I really like that Ino did this from a tension perspective, but I do want to point this out. Ino's worse than scum.
In the ninja world, those who break the rules are scum. That's true. But those who abandon their friends are worse than scum.
Shikamaru asked her to break the rules as a friend, but Ino chose the rules over her friend, meaning she's canonically worse than scum. Do not trust Ino. In any case though, Kankuro calls Shikamaru to let him know that Gaara and Shinki were attacked and asked for his help, revealing that Shinki has been turned into a tree while also being oddly vague about Gaara's fate other than that both of them are alive. But the way he phrases things has me wondering if something peculiar happened to Gaara as well, something entirely new to the audience. I find that very interesting, and it's something I want to talk about in an upcoming video about Gaara and Shinki. I really hope there's something more to it and it's not just, oh, Gaara's sleeping. But regardless of that, in my honest opinion, they made a simple yet critical mistake. They said too much. Gaara's been taken down, his adopted son Shinki too. That should have been the last page of the chapter. It would have been a much better cliffhanger, leaving the reader wondering whether Gaara, Shinki, or both became a tree, rather than just telling you Shinki became a tree and showing you what appears to be a Shinki shinju. That just removes all suspense and anticipation behind the plot point. Why even bother wait until chapter 14? Just show the shinju in chapter 13. And why even bother show the shinju in Koji's vision? That only makes sense if the vision is meant to be an early piece of foreshadowing to build anticipation or a tool for misdirection. Showing that vision and revealing the answer only one chapter later only reduces the mystery and shock value behind the revelation. There's no time to sit on it. There's no time to raise the question. I understand that Mamushi and Bug, Hidari and Sasuke, and Matsuri and Moegi were all revealed pretty much immediately, so I'm not saying that Ryu and Shinki had to be some special mystery. I just don't see why they showed him in Koji's future vision only to reveal him immediately afterwards. There's just no point. That's like showing us the flash forward scene in chapter 1, and then by chapter 2 we're already there. Why even do it at that point? That defeats the purpose of this writing technique. If you want to show that vision, then conceal the appearance of the new Shinju, and then it works, but that's not what they did. Now, is this the end of the world? No, especially if there is something peculiar going on with Gaara. But if Gaara is just fine and dandy, then this is no fun. It's a boring way to tell the story, but that's just my opinion. Feel free to disagree. I do like the design of the new Shinju though. He looks very cool and I'm excited to see what new powers he brings to the table, especially if he can somehow combine the claw marks with his sand. Now, one last thing I want to touch on is a fairly small critique that's mildly annoying and honestly just weird. Boruto doesn't want to expose Kawaki as he's made very clear, yet he tells the village that Naruto and Hinata are still alive, which by default exposes Kawaki and Ada for lying about Naruto dying. Ada literally said, "Yes, I'm sure. The Hokage was killed by Boruto in chapter 80, as though she watched it happen with her Senrigan." If the village were to believe Boruto, or at least somewhat wonder if he's telling the truth, they would immediately start questioning Kawaki and Ada and be like, so, what was that about Naruto dying? All Boruto's doing is making them look sus. He should have at least explained why it looked like Naruto and Hinata died in order to cover for Kawaki and Ada since they lied about that part. Saying something like, "I understand the misconception, but I didn't kill them. They're just somewhere safe for now." Or, "It may look that way, but I didn't kill them. They're just somewhere safe for now." Or any variation of that. Doing so would subtly cut Ada some slack since even she could have fallen prey to this misunderstanding. But as it stands, this only draws attention towards Kawaki and Ada since they're the ones who claim Naruto was dead, which is the exact opposite of what Boruto wants. This is especially weird when you consider the fact that Daemon keeps teasing Kawaki about the fact that his lie will eventually be exposed, and Boruto's pretty much doing that. It's just weird. We'll see what they do with this though. I also don't like how Boruto keeps calling Hinata his wife instead of Hinata or mom. Kawaki doesn't call Sasuke old man Sasuke, yet Boruto's over here throwing that nickname around like Halloween candy. So why is he being so weird about Hinata's name? Just say her name. It makes no sense and it feels weird to read. It makes me like Boruto less than I would otherwise, but he's so weirdly inconsistent with his nicknames for Sasuke that I don't even know what to believe anymore. Maybe one day it'll be explained. Now, everything else about this chapter is pretty bad, and it mostly boils down to way too much recap, extremely slow pacing, and some characters being completely stupid or acting out of character. And honestly, I don't even want to include this in the review anymore. I wrote the whole thing, wrote it again much more condensed, then wrote it again even more condensed, and it was still another 10 minutes. I'll just make separate videos for the big critiques from now on, since it's just wasting my time writing them down and redoing it 50,000 times when I could just be done the review a week earlier. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about this chapter in the comments below, and let me know if there's any points from the chapter that I didn't mention that you found particularly interesting. Watch this video here for more of my content, subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed it, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.